Next up on stage, I will be bringing Vivienne Wei. Vivienne, hello, welcome.
Great to see you.
Great to see you too. You are, in fact, our very last speaker of the day. So I don't know if you knew that. It's very exciting. So Vivienne's going to be closing us out today. As we said, she is the VP of Technology Operations and Strategy at Salesforce. Now, this is a household name now. I'm sure many of you know what Salesforce is up to, but they're always doing something new. Lots of acquisitions and fun things I see out there happening, Vivienne. So today, however, we'll talk to Vivienne. So as we said, she's the Vice President of Salesforce Marketing Cloud. She's leading marketing automation and analytics platforms. She's responsible for scaling tech operations and infrastructure and really driving strategic cloud transformation. Now, it's not the first time she's led a large-scale project or transformation, but this one is around in excess of $1 billion in revenue and part of the portfolio, so lots going on here. And she's actively involved in promoting diversity and women in tech. And that's, of course, one of the amazing reasons that we have her here with us today, as well as the power she has in her role right now. And today, Vivienne, if I am correct, you're going to be talking to us about resilient leadership. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I know that, part of the calls to action when we were reading, obviously everyone can go online in advance and see kind of what your talk is about today. And I really liked that sometimes that we aim for speed over perfection and that there's kind of different times for this. And that's something I'm really kind of eager to hear you talk about today. So Vivienne, over to you.
Thank you so much, Margot. And thank you everyone for sitting through this entire day of Power Talks. I'm really excited to be here today sharing my stories. COVID has hit us unexpectedly, but not every business lost, right? We've seen a record number of IPOs and unicorns. Some businesses not only survived, but thrived. I mean, look at Peloton as an example. The founder failed to raise capital and got rejected from VC so many times. But then they went public and was back ordered for months. I mean, businesses succeeded with resilience leadership. So as I was thinking about what would be most relevant for all of you, I want to talk to you about resilience through my personal journey. And I really want to share the tips and tricks that helped me succeed so that you can use them to supercharge your career. So let's start with my personal journey. If you can bring up the slides, that would be great. So, I was born and raised in China, on a different part of the world. And my parents were both entrepreneurs, but back in those days, there was no glory venture capital. It meant very little capital and all of their savings, and they had to borrow from families and friends. And we did not have a lot of resources, but they told me education was the only way to build a brighter future. So I remember at the age of 18, I got accepted into Dartmouth. It was something that I had been working really hard towards, but didn't necessarily count on because coming to America was, at the time, just such an unattainable dream. Several months later, I remember carrying 3 huge suitcases with $2,000 of family savings sewed into my shirt. And off I went. I took a plane by myself and went to Hanover, New Hampshire. And during college, I was fascinated by capital markets. I loved reading Wall Street journals. So my first job out of college was actually to join a prestigious investment bank. You can see the Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, I had the opportunities to work on billion-dollar acquisitions, IPOs, public companies go to private. I mean, you name it. And I was really hungry. It gave me a tremendous amount of opportunities to learn and exposure to boards and C-suite executives. Until one project we were working on with this client that was about to breach their loan covenant. What that meant was if they couldn't figure out a way to stay within the limitations, they were going to go file for bankruptcy. So my associate and I, we worked all night on this super important pitch. I mean, I built the model and we checked many, many times just to make sure everything was perfect. So when we met with our managing director at 8 a.m., he just tore apart our entire pitch book. And he went on to say, this was all wrong. I remember him like there was a sheet of paper with 6 sensitivity tables, and he crossed every single one of them and talked about how wrong it was and that we weren't competent. I mean, what he said more afterwards became a blur. But I remember after he left, my 6'2" male associate was crying in a small office with me sitting next to him. It became a little bit like this. And at the time I was sitting there, I felt so defeated. I mean, I failed at building this model correctly. I was also really scared. Like, I was thinking, am I going to get fired from this? If I get fired, I might have to go back to China because I'm going to lose my visa sponsor. And my family in China are going to be so disappointed in me. And I was also just incredibly sleep deprived. Just as I was thinking about, so what now? My associate wiped off his tears. I mean, he took me out for coffee and breakfast. And then after that, we came back and continued crunching through the numbers. A couple of months later, we closed the capitalization deal and saved our client from going bankrupt. And I was spared from getting fired, thank God. So lesson number 1, I mean, at the time, it was very tough, but those lows, they always pass. I mean, it seemed like a big deal. I thought I was going to have to move back to China. But what really changed was how we dealt with it. That's what matters. I worked a lot more. I sought out advice on additional checks and balances to build into my model to make sure they're correct. And this tough moment taught me to be resilient. And more importantly, what great leadership was not about. So after Harvard Business School, I moved into tech. I loved working years and to deliver innovations. I mean, I had to completely change my domain knowledge. It was unexpectedly beautiful at the same time because I had to apply myself in new ways that I wasn't used to. It was really uncomfortable, but I'm happy. I took on my current job 2 weeks before the pandemic happened. So I'm responsible for driving scale and efficiency for a 1,500 person organization. The plan was for me to visit our global locations in 12 offices and get to know our teams and strengthen our operational rigor. And if anything, Wall Street had trained me to become this little perfectionist. Lockdown happened, everything was thrown out the window. So just as I was setting up my home office, trying to feeling a little bit lost to what was I going to do without a plan, I saw this. And I realized my global engineering team needed help to have the right. Everything moved digitally pretty much overnight. And our marketing customers, who used to rely half of the investments on in-person events, pretty much had to pivot and figure out, how to rely on technology to continue to engage with their customers to drive business. And if past experience ever told me, this, at that point, there was no time to waste. I was just starting to get to know my new boss, who was based in a different location. And I told him, hey, time is of the essence here. We're gonna have to move really fast. I will need you to trust me to make some key decisions to help us get through this. I won't necessarily have the luxury to walk through every single action items with you, but know that I will act in our team's best interest. And I will also look to him for guidance if needed. And at that point, he trusted me to get the job done. So 6 months, I got promoted. And our team, just this past holiday, hit our record numbers. If you listen to the Salesforce earnings call yesterday, so lesson number 2, when there is a crisis, there are opportunities. Have the courage and conviction and rise to the occasion. I definitely, put aside my perfectionist and just prioritize the speed over that perfection. And you're probably wondering, how did I make all of this work with kids? I will say the hardest journey in my life was becoming a mother. So here's a picture of my 2 super inquisitive daughters who are extremely into Legos and Disneyland. And, it's a very joyful moment. But I was also really challenged physically and emotionally, from having emergency C-sections to sleepless nights caring for an infant and having to breastfeed while working. It made me realize, through this journey, I was very resilient, but at the same time, I had a greater amount of appreciation for my own mother and the sacrifices she had to go through. So just when the pandemic happened, she decided she would stay with us to help us look after my kids so that I could focus on work. And as we spent more time together, I also learned something that I didn't know, which was she actually had a chance to have a bigger family when I was little. And that I could have had 2 twin sibling brothers. Now, when I first found out this news, I really didn't know how to process it. My feelings were very, very mixed. I was shocked that she kept it from me for all these years. My heart was also filled with deep, deep sadness for her, for having to go through that traumatic experience. But at the same time, I was incredibly proud of my mother. She was somebody who lived through that painful experience because of one-child policy, and she moved on to start and building a highly successful company. So I asked her what kept her going. She said she needed to create a better future for me. And that's what motivated her. So lesson number 3, women are really the most resilient. This was not just a story about my mother. It's a story that your grandparents, your grandmothers, your mothers, your sisters, your female colleagues, all of you, and the strength and resilience leadership that you display every single day. It is in our DNA. And we're coming to a close here, so I will share one last thing, and which is I have a really big dream. So before I leave this planet, I hope half of the leaders around the world are women. Some would say this is a crazy vision, but it really should not be. Because I have seen high-performing women who are long-term system thinkers. And they're really the most fit to lead our future world. Just think about all the speakers today. And imagine 30 years from now, international leaders gather around the table to address the world's most pressing challenges. I want to be that person they call to solve their greatest problem. If I can do that, I will have reached my full potential and along the way given back and inspired others. And I invite all of you to join me and do the same, starting today, because you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivienne. I'm so glad that you had a chance to come back in and join us and be able to kind of finish everything off together. It's a lot more fun, of course, than leaving without your kind of message at the end, hey?
Totally. Thank you for bringing me back. Success from anywhere, virtual world, we rely on technology more than ever, but all of a sudden,
I know, but it's such a theme of today, right? We rely on technology and we also rely on, like you were saying, kind of the vulnerability, the resiliency, the human piece of it. Like at the end of the day, we made it happen. We brought you back, and it's the human aspect that kind of makes the experience what it is.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Vivienne, for closing off our day today. What a wonderful day of speakers, and it was so great to have you here at the end of our day.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to everybody who joined and have had this tremendous experience.
Thanks so much. Bye for now.